Miss Dumas here, and we are going to go ahead and do the second part of our sourcing mini lesson today. And this one, we're going to do some real life application on the French Revolution sourcing activity that I had you guys do earlier this week. And so what I want to do with this activity is just show you guys how do you determine which type of sourcing you should use for the document, and how do you complete a full sourcing so that you can earn the points for it. So let's take a look at this. As you guys have seen, you've already done this week. This is your sourcing activity. I asked you to create a thesis statement and then also source 3 documents based on this prompt, analyze the causes of the French Revolution. And most of you said the causes of the French Revolution were unfair conditions towards the Third Estate and the American Revolution, which was great. That's the argument you're trying to make. That is what the documents proved. So once you created your thesis, now you had to go back and source documents. And so I want to show you through this quick little demo how to determine which type of sourcing to do with each document and how to make it complete. So I'm only going to do 3 documents today, but hopefully this will help. All right, so let's look at document 1. And document 1 is basically telling us that the Third Estate owns not a whole lot of land, but has to basically pay all the taxes. Now, when I'm looking at this source, I don't have a date. I don't have a specific author. So if I don't have a specific author, I am not going to do POV, right? I just don't have enough information. So we're going to kick POV right out of the door. Audience, I don't know who this is to. This could have been in a textbook. Could have been something that was printed in 1750. I don't know, or not 1750 because the revolution didn't happen, but in 1790, I don't know. I have no clue as to who the audience would be with this one. So that's going to narrow it down either to purpose or historical context. I could probably do either or, but I think it's going to be easier for this one for historical context. That's going to be the easiest sourcing to do. And so if I know that the whole message is the Third Estate have to pay a ton of taxes, they have no land, and the other 2 estates don't have to pay any taxes, okay, and that's part of my argument is to unfair treatment of the Third Estate, how I can incorporate historical context is something like this, and I hope this works and you guys can see this. I can say something like, I've just completed my evidence that the Third Estate is treated unfairly, and I could say something like this for historical context, oops, why am I not able to type? I don't know. Maybe I'm not able to. Okay. I could say something like, in 1789, it was a 3-estate system in France. The first and second estates, who were the clergy and nobility, they didn't have to pay taxes at all, which meant the majority of taxes had to be paid by the Third Estate. They were already super poor to begin with. They had no say in government. They were given very few freedoms. And so therefore, because they were treated so poorly and they were going bankrupt because of this tax system, this is going to cause them to rise up and rebel. So I explained what was going on during this time period of 1789, and then I tied it back to my argument. So that would be a good historical context sourcing for this document. Now, if I go to document 2, I see that I do have an author. I do know that he is British. He went to France and traveled during this time period. So I know a lot about the person who wrote this document. So I think this might be a good one to do POV for. I mean, I could do historical context too, but I just did that. I don't want to duplicate the same argument. I could probably do purpose, but again, I don't know who he's writing this book for. So that's going to make it a little bit harder to do purpose or audience. So I'm going to stick with POV. And remember that POV is his point of view and why he might have this point of view, and you can also assess credibility with it. So what I can say here is this, is based on what Arthur Young is saying, his point of view is that the poor are very poor, the children are in terrible condition, and his point of view is they're so poor they can't even afford a loaf of bread. That is his point of view. Now, the question is, why does he have this point of view? Well, he's there. He sees it. That's why he has this point of view. He is literally in France from 1788 to 1789, so he can see the suffering that the Third Estate is going through. And then if I want to talk about credibility, what I could say is I think this is a fairly credible document. This guy this isn't secondhand knowledge. He didn't hear it from somebody else. He was on the ground in France talking to the poor. So when he says that, hey, the conditions really suck for the poor people, we can trust that. He was there, right? And so if I was to do a POV statement after I gave my evidence, I could say, hey, this guy's POV is that life is really hard for the poor people of France. They can't afford bread. Their children are terribly ragged. And we can probably trust this opinion as true because he was in France during the time period leading up to the French Revolution. So, therefore, when he says, hey, one of the conditions leading to the French Revolution was because people were so poor, that's probably true. And so that's how you could do a POV statement with document 2. Now, let's look at document 3. So this is a satirical portrayal of the three estate system in France, and it is super important that you recognize that it is satirical. That's going to play a role into purpose. And most of you understood this document really well, that it was the third estate who was, carrying the first and second estate on their back. So I don't know who did it, so I can't do POV. I could do historical context, but if I do historical context again, I'm just explaining about the bad conditions of the third estate, and I've already done that. And I'm not really quite sure who the audience might be, but I do think I can do a solid purpose with this one, especially since I know this is satirical. So after I've provided the evidence from this document supporting my argument, I could say something like this. The purpose of this satirical portrayal of the three estate system is to really get a broad audience to understand the absurdity or the unfairness or ridiculousness of all the burden having to fall on the third estate, right? And then you could go on to explain why it was satirical, why the author felt he had to exaggerate this to get the point across, and then tie it back to your argument as to, and this is why, conditions were so bad for the third estate, and then why they chose to rebel. And so hopefully what you guys have seen is I've taken what they've given me in the source material, and that has determined what kind of sourcing I choose to do. And then once I've chosen what kind of sourcing I want to do, then I explain it, whether it's purpose or POV or historical context, and with one final sentence at the end of that, tie it back to my argument. So my goal today was to show you guys how to determine what sourcing to do for each document and how to make it complete. If you would still like more help with sourcing, feel free to email me at any time or feel free to contact me. We could do a Zoom meeting if that would work best for you. But hopefully this is going to make sourcing a little bit easier for you. And until next time, thanks for watching.